The text message that destroyed my life came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, right as I was counting my tips from another soul-crushing day of food delivery. We need to talk. Tomorrow. It's important. Emma's words glowed on my cracked phone screen like a death sentence I was too stupid to recognize. I should have known something was wrong when she suggested the fancy Italian place downtown, the kind of restaurant where I'd delivered countless orders but never actually eaten, the kind of place where a single appetizer cost more than I made in a day, driving around this godforsaken city in my beat-up Honda, hauling overpriced meals to people who looked right through me. But I was Nick Alvarez, eternal optimist and professional idiot. I thought maybe she wanted to celebrate. After all, Emma had just passed the bar exam, and I'd been working 3 jobs for the past 2 years to make that happen. Nights at the warehouse, mornings doing construction cleanup, afternoons and evenings delivering food. My hands were permanently stained with grease and concrete dust. My back ached constantly, and I hadn't had a full night's sleep since 2019. But it was worth it, right? We were a team. We had plans. I showed up at Romano's wearing my one decent shirt, the blue button-down I'd bought for her law school graduation. Emma was already there, looking absolutely stunning in a black dress I'd never seen before. Designer, definitely. The kind of thing that cost more than my monthly rent. "You look incredible," I said, sliding into the booth across from her. The leather was so soft it felt like sitting on a cloud. "New dress?" "Nick." Her voice was different, cold, professional. The same tone she used when practicing closing arguments. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about where we're going." My stomach dropped, but I forced a smile. "Okay, good thinking. I've been thinking too. Maybe it's time we finally set a wedding date. You're going to be making good money now, and I can probably drop one of my jobs." "No." The word hit me like a slap. "Nick, this isn't working anymore." The restaurant buzzed around us. Conversations, laughter, the clink of expensive silverware on expensive plates. Normal people having normal evenings, completely unaware that my world was imploding at table 12. "What do you mean it's not working?" I kept my voice low, but I could feel heat rising in my chest. "Emma, I've been busting my ass for 2 years, so you could focus on school. We talked about this. We planned this." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Things change, Nick. I've changed. Law school opened my eyes to a lot of things. I need someone who can match my ambitions. Someone on my level." "Your level?" The words came out louder than I intended. A couple at the next table glanced over. "Emma, what the hell does that mean?" "I've been supporting you this whole time. I believed in you when you wanted to quit after first year. I worked double shifts so you could afford those prep courses. And I'm grateful for that. I really am." She finally looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before in her green eyes. Pity. But gratitude isn't enough to build a marriage on. I need a partner, not someone who delivers food for a living. The waiter appeared with perfect timing, like they always do in situations like this. "Good evening, folks. Can I start you off with some drinks?" "Actually," Emma said, her voice steady and calm, "I think we're done here." She stood up, smoothing down her dress. For a second, I thought she was joking, some elaborate prank. But then she pulled an envelope from her purse and placed it on the table. "These are the papers to dissolve our domestic partnership. I've already signed them. My new address is on there, too, for forwarding mail." She paused, and for just a moment, the mask slipped. "I'm sorry, Nick. I really am. But I can't pretend anymore that we want the same things." And then she was gone, leaving me alone with a confused waiter and the smoking ruins of everything I'd worked for. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, staring at the envelope. The waiter kept hovering, probably wondering if I was going to order something or just take up valuable real estate. Finally, I opened it. The papers were professional, thorough. She'd had a lawyer draw them up, probably weeks ago while I was out delivering pad thai and pizza, completely clueless. The new address was in the Meridian District, the fancy part of town where all the law firms had their offices. A place I'd delivered to plenty of times but never imagined living. That's when it hit me. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't some impulsive decision after a bad day. Emma had been planning this. While I was working myself into the ground to support her dreams, She was already moving on to bigger and better things. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Our apartment, my apartment now, I guess, felt different when I walked in. Smaller, emptier. I noticed things missing that I hadn't seen her pack. Her coffee mug, the throw pillow she'd bought at that craft fair last spring, the framed photo of us from her graduation. She'd been moving out piece by piece, and I'd been too exhausted to notice. I opened a beer and sat on the couch, staring at the wall where that photo used to hang. The nail was still there, a tiny hole in the white paint. Such a small thing, but it felt like a wound. My phone buzzed. A text from Dante, my buddy who worked the same delivery routes. "How'd dinner go, man? She say yes to setting a date?" I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. She said yes to something. 3 weeks later, I was delivering Chinese food to the Meridian district when I saw her. Emma was walking out of Blackstone and Associates, one of the biggest law firms in the city, laughing at something the man beside her was saying. He was older, maybe 40, with silver at his temples and the kind of confident swagger that screamed money and power. Sean Bishop. I recognized him from the legal blogs Emma used to read obsessively. Senior partner at Blackstone, known for his ruthless corporate litigation and his even more ruthless personal life. Divorced twice, rumored to have a thing for younger associates. They looked comfortable together. Too comfortable. I sat in my car across the street, engine running, watching them through the windshield. Emma touched his arm as they talked, the same gesture she used to make with me when we first started dating. Sean said something that made her throw her head back and laugh. Really laugh. Not the polite chuckle she'd been giving me for months before the breakup. A horn honked behind me. I was blocking traffic, lost in my pathetic surveillance. I drove away, but the image stayed burned in my mind. Emma in another designer outfit, looking happier than I'd seen her in years. Sean Bishop looking at her like she was his next conquest. Or maybe his current one. The rumors started filtering back to me through the usual channels. Dante heard it from his girlfriend, who worked as a paralegal downtown. My buddy Marcus, who did security at some of the office buildings, mentioned seeing Emma at the fancy wine bar on 5th Street, with some older guy in an expensive suit. Even Mrs. Chen at the Chinese place started giving me pitying looks when I picked up orders. "That girl, she no good for you anyway," Mrs. Chen said one afternoon, loading up my delivery bag. "You find better, someone who appreciate hard work." But I wasn't ready to hear that yet. I was still stuck in the anger phase, replaying every conversation, every moment, looking for signs I'd missed. The late nights she claimed to be studying, the new clothes, the way she'd started talking about networking events and professional development opportunities, the way she'd stopped looking at me like she used to. I was delivering to the Meridian district more often now, partly because it was good money, rich people tipped better, but mostly because I was hoping to see her again. I told myself I just wanted closure. Really, I think I was hoping to catch her looking miserable, maybe regretting her decision. Instead, I kept seeing her looking radiant. 2 months after the breakup, I was dropping off Thai food at the Blackstone building when I overheard something that made my blood run cold. 2 junior associates were waiting for the elevator, talking in the kind of loud whispers that aren't really whispers at all. "Did you see Emma's ring?" the blonde one said. "That's got to be at least 3 carats. "Sean doesn't mess around," her brunette friend replied, "though I heard he's technically still married to wife number 2. Separation, not divorce. That won't last long. Not with Emma pushing for it. She's got him completely wrapped around her finger." The elevator doors opened and they disappeared, leaving me standing in the lobby with a bag of Pad CU and the crushing realization that Emma hadn't just moved on. She'd traded up, and she'd done it fast. That night, I did something I'm not proud of. I drove to her new address and parked across the street. It was a high-rise apartment building with a doorman and everything. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of what had to be her unit, I could see movement. Shadows. 2 figures. I sat there for an hour, hating myself but unable to leave. Finally, the lights went out, and I drove home to my empty apartment with its nail hole in the wall and its silence that felt like a physical weight. I was losing it. I knew I was losing it, but I couldn't seem to stop. The worst part wasn't losing Emma. The worst part was losing everyone else. It started slowly, the way these things always do. Missed calls that didn't get returned, group chats that went quiet when I joined, invitations that somehow never made it to me. Jake Martinez had been my best friend since college. We'd been through everything together: his messy divorce, my dad's death, countless nights talking about our dreams and fears, over cheap beer and cheaper pizza. When Emma and I got engaged, Jake was the first person I called. When she left me, he was the first person I wanted to talk to. But Jake was also a junior associate at Morrison and Webb, one of Blackstone's biggest rivals. And in the legal world, apparently, loyalty to your profession trumps loyalty to your friends. "It's complicated, man," Jake said when I finally cornered him at Murphy's Bar, our old hangout spot. He wouldn't meet my eyes, just kept peeling the label off his beer bottle. "Emma's making waves in the legal community. She's smart, connected. People are taking notice. So, so maybe you should just let this go. Move on. Find someone else." I stared at him. "Jake, she cheated on me. While I was working 3 jobs to support her, she was screwing around with her boss. And you want me to just let it go?" "You don't know that she cheated," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Maybe they got together after you guys broke up. 3 weeks after? Come on, man. You know better than that." Jake finally looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes: fear. "Nick, listen to me. Sean Bishop is not someone you want to mess with. He's got connections everywhere: judges, politicians, cops. If you start spreading rumors or making accusations—" "I'm not making accusations, I'm stating facts." "Facts you can't prove?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "And even if you could, what's the point? You think Emma's going to come running back? You think destroying her reputation is going to make you feel better?" "Maybe." The honesty of my answer seemed to shock him. Hell, it shocked me too. "That's not you, Nick. That's not who you are." "Maybe it is now." Jake finished his beer and stood up. "I can't be part of this. I'm sorry, but I can't. I've got my own career to think about." And just like that, 15 years of friendship died at a sticky table in Murphy's Bar. The others followed quickly. Sarah and Tom, who'd been couple friends with Emma and me for years, stopped returning my calls entirely. When I ran into them at the grocery store, they were polite but distant, like I was a casual acquaintance, instead of someone who'd helped Tom move 3 times and had spent countless evenings playing board games at their kitchen table. "We're trying to stay neutral," Sarah explained, her voice carefully diplomatic. "You understand." But I didn't understand. How do you stay neutral when someone gets screwed over? How do you stay neutral when someone you've known for years gets their heart ripped out by someone they trusted? The answer, I learned, is that you pick the side that's winning. And Emma was definitely winning. My social circle, which had never been huge to begin with, shrank to basically nothing. Dante was still around, but he was more of a work friend than anything else. My family was 3,000 miles away in California. The few other people I knew were casual acquaintances, not the kind of people you call when your life falls apart. I was alone in a way I'd never been before. Not just single, but genuinely isolated. And the worst part was I could feel it changing me. The anger was eating away at everything else: my sleep, my appetite, my ability to focus on anything except the injustice of it all. I started following Emma's career obsessively: legal blogs, firm newsletters, society pages. She was rising fast, taking on high-profile cases, getting quoted in newspapers. There were photos of her at charity galas and professional events, always looking stunning, always with Sean Bishop by her side. Meanwhile, I was still delivering food and cleaning construction sites, coming home to an empty apartment and a growing collection of empty beer bottles. The breaking point came 4 months after the breakup. I was delivering dinner to a house party in the suburbs when I walked into my own personal nightmare. It was Jake's birthday party, and somehow no one had thought to mention that Emma would be there. She was holding court in the living room, telling some story that had everyone laughing. She looked incredible, tan, confident, wearing jewelry I could never have afforded. Sean was next to her, his hand possessively on her lower back. The room went quiet when they saw me. 20 people I'd known for years, all staring at me like I was an intruder. Nick, Jake said, appearing at my elbow with forced casualness. I didn't know you were working tonight. Birthday dinner for the Martinez family, I said, holding up the delivery bags. Funny coincidence. Emma's eyes met mine across the room. For just a second, I saw something flicker there. Guilt, maybe, or regret. But then, Sean whispered something in her ear and she laughed, the sound cutting through me like glass. Well, Jake said, reaching for his wallet. Thanks for bringing the food. Here's your tip. He was dismissing me, in front of everyone, in front of her. I looked around the room at all these people who used to be my friends. People who'd eaten at my table, who'd crashed on my couch, who'd borrowed money from me when times were tough. Now they were looking at me like I was the help, which I guess I was. Keep it, I said, handing Jake the bags. Consider it a birthday gift, along with all the other gifts I've given you over the years that you seem to have forgotten about. I turned to leave, but Emma's voice stopped me. Nick! She'd moved closer, and I could smell her perfume, something expensive and unfamiliar. How are you doing, really? The concern in her voice was probably genuine, which somehow made it worse. I'm great, Emma, living the dream. Thanks for asking. You don't have to be like this. Like what? Honest? Sean appeared beside her, his hand moving to her shoulder in a gesture that was clearly territorial. Is there a problem here? I looked at him. Really looked at him. Expensive suit, perfect teeth, manicured nails. Everything I wasn't and never would be. No problem, I said. Just delivering food to people who can afford it. I left before anyone could respond, but I heard the uncomfortable silence I left behind. In the car, my hands were shaking so badly, I could barely start the engine. That was the night I decided Emma Renner was going to pay for what she'd done to me. I just had to figure out how. The answer came from the most unexpected place imaginable. I was delivering Chinese food to Sunset Manor, one of those expensive assisted living facilities where rich people go to die with dignity. The order was for Mrs. Eleanor Wayland, apartment 412. I'd delivered to her before. Always Chinese food, always a generous tip, always a few minutes of polite conversation about the weather or the state of the world. Mrs. Wayland was probably 80, with sharp blue eyes and silver hair that was always perfectly styled. She moved slowly, but her mind was razor sharp, and she had the kind of old money elegance that made you want to stand up straighter in her presence. Mr. Alvarez, she said when I handed her the bag of lo mein and egg rolls. How lovely to see you again. Please come in for a moment. I have something to discuss with you. This was unusual. Our conversations typically happened at the door, but something in her tone made me follow her into the apartment. It was beautiful. Antique furniture, oil paintings, fresh flowers. The kind of place that spoke of a lifetime of good taste and better investments. Sit down, dear, she said, gesturing to a velvet armchair. I've been doing some research, and I believe we have something important to discuss. Research? She settled into the chair across from me, moving carefully but deliberately. About your mother, Maria Alvarez. My blood went cold. My mother had died when I was 12, and I rarely talked about her with anyone. How could this stranger possibly know anything about her? I don't understand. Mrs. Wayland reached for a manila folder on the side table. Your mother worked for my late husband's company, Wayland Industries. She was our head of facilities management for almost 10 years, until she became ill. I remembered my mother working for some big company downtown, but I'd been just a kid. The details were fuzzy. When she died, Mrs. Wayland continued, she had an outstanding contract with the company, a profit-sharing agreement that was quite generous for its time. The payments were supposed to continue to her beneficiaries, to you, until you turned 35. I never got any payments. No, you wouldn't have. There was a clerical error. Your mother's personnel file was misfiled, and when the company was restructured after my husband's death, your case fell through the cracks. I've been going through old records trying to tie up loose ends before I... She paused delicately. Before I joined my husband, your name kept appearing in the files. She opened the folder and pulled out a thick stack of papers. Mr. Alvarez, according to my calculations, Wayland Industries owes you approximately $847,000 in back payments and interest. The number hit me like a physical blow. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, but her expression was completely serious. 847,000, yes, plus there's more. She pulled out another document. Your mother also had a clause in her contract giving her, and by extension you, first right of refusal on any major property sales. We're currently in negotiations to sell our downtown office building. The sale price is $12 million. My head was spinning. I don't understand what you're saying. I'm saying, Mr. Alvarez, that you have the legal right to purchase that building for exactly half the market value, $6 million, which, coincidentally, is almost exactly what you'd have after taxes on your mother's settlement, plus some additional financing I'd be happy to arrange. I sat there in stunned silence, trying to process what she was telling me. This morning I'd been a broke delivery driver. Now I was potentially a millionaire? Why? I finally managed. Why are you telling me this? You could have just not said anything. Mrs. Whalen smiled, and for the first time since I'd met her, she looked her age. Because your mother was a good woman who worked hard for everything she had. Because I believe in honoring debts, even old ones, and because... She paused, studying my face. Because I have a feeling you're going to put this opportunity to good use. There was something in her tone that suggested she knew more about my situation than she was letting on. But I was too overwhelmed to pursue it. What do I need to do? First, we need to make this official. I'll have my lawyers draw up the paperwork. The settlement should be processed within 30 days. The building purchase will take a bit longer, but I can arrange bridge financing if needed. She stood up slowly, signaling that our conversation was over. Mr. Alvarez, I hope you'll remember that with great fortune comes great responsibility. Use this gift wisely. I drove home in a daze, my mind reeling with possibilities. For the first time in months, I felt something other than anger and despair. I felt hope. But more than that, I felt power. Emma had left me because I wasn't on her level. She'd chosen Sean Bishop because he had money and status and connections. Well, things were about to change. That night, I called the law firm Mrs. Wayland had recommended. Within a week, I was sitting in a conference room downtown, signing papers that would change my life forever. The lawyers explained everything in detail: the settlement, the building purchase, the various tax implications and investment opportunities. Congratulations, Mr. Alvarez, the senior partner said as we finished up. You're about to become a very wealthy man. But wealth wasn't enough. I didn't just want money. I wanted revenge. And now, finally, I had the resources to get it. The first phase of my plan was simple: establish myself as a legitimate player in Emma's world. The downtown building I'd purchased came with several high-end office suites, and I made sure to lease them to the most prestigious tenants possible. Law firms, investment companies, consulting groups, the kind of businesses that generated buzz in professional circles. Within 2 months, I was getting invitations to networking events and charity galas. Nothing major at first, but enough to get my name circulating in the right circles. I bought expensive suits, got a decent haircut, and practiced talking like someone who belonged in rooms full of lawyers and executives. The transformation was remarkable, even to me. 6 months ago, I'd been invisible, just another working-class guy grinding through his days. Now I was Nick Alvarez, property developer and investor. People returned my calls. Waiters treated me with respect. I got tables at restaurants where I used to deliver food. But the real test came at the annual Bar Association charity auction, a black tie event that Emma had mentioned countless times during law school. She'd always dreamed of attending, back when we couldn't afford the 500 per plate tickets. I bought a table for 8 and invited some of my new business associates. We sat near the back, but I had a perfect view of the front tables where the legal elite held court. Emma was there, of course, stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than my old monthly rent. Sean Bishop was beside her, working the room like the political animal he was. They looked like the perfect power couple. Successful, attractive, completely in control of their world. I waited until the auction was in full swing before making my move. Ladies and gentlemen, the auctioneer announced, our next item is a week-long vacation package to Tuscany, donated by Meridian Travel. Bidding starts at $5,000. Hands went up around the room. Emma and Sean were bidding along with several other couples. The price climbed steadily, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000. 15,000, Sean called out, his voice confident and casual. 20,000, I said, loud enough for half the room to hear. Heads turned in my direction. I could see Emma's face from across the room, confusion, then recognition, then something that might have been fear. 25, Sean countered, but his voice had an edge now. 50,000, I said calmly. The room went quiet. $50,000 for a week in Italy was insane, even by charity auction standards. But I had their attention now, and that was worth every penny. 50,000 going once, the auctioneer said, clearly delighted by the unexpected windfall. Going twice. Sold to the gentleman in the back. Applause rippled through the room, but I could feel the stares and whispered conversations. Who was this guy? Where had he come from? How did he have that kind of money to throw around? I excused myself from my table and headed to the bar, knowing Emma would follow. She didn't disappoint. Nick. Her voice was carefully controlled, but I could see the shock in her eyes. I didn't expect to see you here. Really? I thought you might have heard through the grapevine. Word travels fast in legal circles. What are you doing here? This isn't your scene. I ordered a scotch, something expensive that I'd learned to appreciate in my new life. Things change, Emma. People change. Isn't that what you told me at Romano's? That you'd changed? How can you afford... She gestured vaguely toward the auction stage. Nick, what's going on? I came into some money. Family inheritance. Turns out my mother was smarter with investments than I realized. It wasn't technically a lie. Mrs. Whalen had explained that my mother's profit-sharing agreement was essentially an investment in the company's future success. That's wonderful for you. Really. But Emma didn't look like she thought it was wonderful. She looked unsettled, like someone had just rearranged all the furniture in her house. Sean appeared at her elbow, his politician's smile not quite reaching his eyes. Emma, darling, who's your friend? Sean Bishop, he said, extending his hand. I don't believe we've met. Nick Alvarez. I shook his hand, making sure my grip was firm. I've heard a lot about you. All good, I hope. Mostly. The word hung in the air between us. Sean's smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. Nick is Emma's... Emma started, then stopped, clearly unsure how to finish the sentence. Ex-fiancé, I supplied helpfully. From before Emma discovered she needed someone more on her level. Emma's face went white. Sean's went red. I see, Sean said, his voice carefully neutral. Well, that's ancient history now, isn't it? Emma and I are very happy together. So I've heard. Congratulations on the engagement, by the way. Though I understand the divorce proceedings are taking longer than expected. Now Sean looked genuinely angry. I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. You're married to someone else, but engaged to Emma. That's got to be complicated from a legal standpoint. Nick, Emma said sharply. Don't. Don't what? Don't point out that your fiancé is technically still married? Don't mention that you started dating while he was separated but not divorced? I'm just making conversation. Sean stepped closer, and I could smell his cologne, something expensive and overwhelming. Listen, friend, I don't know what your game is, but... My game? I laughed, and it felt good to let some genuine amusement into my voice. Sean, I don't have a game. I'm just a guy who worked 3 jobs to put his girlfriend through law school, only to get dumped the minute she didn't need me anymore. I'm just a guy who watched all his friends choose sides, and somehow they all chose the side with money and connections. I finished my scotch and set the glass on the bar. But you know what? Things have a funny way of working out. 6 months ago, Emma thought I wasn't good enough for her world. Now I'm buying vacation packages that cost more than most people's cars. Funny how quickly things can change, isn't it? I started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Emma? Thanks for the motivation. I never would have discovered what I was capable of if you hadn't pushed me to level up. I left them standing at the bar and walked back to my table, feeling their eyes on me the entire way. My business associates were impressed by the auction win, and we spent the rest of the evening networking and making connections. But the real victory was the look on Emma's face when she realized that her broke ex-fiancé had just outbid her wealthy new boyfriend without breaking a sweat. The game, as they say, had changed. The beauty of having money isn't just what you can buy. It's the information you can access. Within a month of the charity auction, I had a comprehensive picture of Emma and Sean's situation, courtesy of a very expensive private investigator. Sean's divorce was messier than anyone knew. His wife, Patricia, wasn't just asking for half of everything. She was demanding spousal support, claiming emotional distress, and threatening to expose some very unflattering details about Sean's extramarital activities. The case was dragging on because Sean kept trying to hide assets, and Patricia's lawyers kept finding them. Emma, meanwhile, was walking a tightrope at Blackstone and Associates. Dating a senior partner was risky enough, but dating a married senior partner was career suicide if it became public knowledge. She was brilliant at her job, but the legal world was still surprisingly conservative about certain things. My investigator also uncovered something interesting. Sean had been promising Emma a partnership track, but the firm's other senior partners were less enthusiastic. There were whispers that she was advancing too fast, that her relationship with Sean was creating conflicts of interest. All of this gave me leverage. But I wanted more than leverage. I wanted justice. The opportunity came when I learned that Blackstone and Associates was looking for new office space. Their lease was up for renewal, and they needed something bigger and more prestigious, something that would impress clients and attract top talent, something like the building I now owned. I had my property manager reach out to their real estate team. Within a week, Sean himself was touring the space, clearly impressed by the location and amenities. The rent I was asking was competitive, and the building had everything they needed. "This could work very well for us," Sean told my property manager during the tour. "Who's the owner? I'd like to meet them to discuss terms." "Mr. Alvarez prefers to handle negotiations through intermediaries," my manager explained, "but I'm authorized to discuss all the details." The lease negotiation took 2 weeks. Sean was thorough but fair, and we quickly reached terms that worked for both sides. The contract was signed on a Friday afternoon with Blackstone and Associates set to move in at